So hello everyone, and welcome to Art Salon. For people who don't know me, I'm Ellie Shore, and I've been doing these Art Salon artist talks and discussion groups for over 4 years now, and they are always different, always exciting. I work really hard at finding exciting people in South Florida who are doing very different things. So it's my pleasure tonight to introduce Shri Prabha. And I'd like to read you the title of his talk, Art as a Conduit to the Interconnected Cosmos, Synthesizing the Possibilities Across Ecology, Geology, and Science. That's a big goal. Shri is someone who felt to me like he kind of came out of nowhere, not nowhere, but all of a sudden Shri burst on the scene in Broward County and has become very well known south of here. I think this is his first time talking in Palm Beach County.
Yep.
Or showing his work in Palm Beach County, and I'm thrilled to be doing this for the first time here. I met Shri during an art walk at Fat Village, where he had his studio for a while. And if you haven't been to Fat Village, I think most of you have, but it's one of my favorite destinations. And I met him there and walked around his studio and heard something about science and video, and it was all very vague, and I didn't really get a feel of what he was doing. And then I saw installations of his several times at the projects in Fat Village, and they are very exciting and very impressive. They were kind of like a combination of video and a campfire and a tent, and there were multiple projections and swirling lights and all kinds of things going on in a darkened space, which the projects is, and it was amazing. Since then, he has had a solo exhibition at the Hollywood Art and Culture Center. He's had a solo exhibition at Young at Art Museum in Davie. He was at the 100 plus degrees in the shade exhibition that took place in Miami during Art Basel this year. Sandra Schulman, who is here tonight, was the director of that particular space, not the curator, but the director of that space. He's been all over the place. He started out in Hyderabad, India, and found his way to the United States, studied in Seattle and got a bachelor's degree in studio arts, went to San Francisco and got a master's degree in psychology, which I hope he's going to talk about a bit tonight, because that is a part of his life I don't yet know anything about.
You're not on the clock. So.
And then moved here and is very quickly becoming extremely well known. Shri Prabha.
So, I want to thank Ellie for inviting me to come up here. I think she does great work having these discussions and talks. It's true, I moved from San Francisco to here, and when I first moved here, people were asking, why'd you move here from San Francisco? And San Francisco has become the epicenter of the IT world. Everyone that was in Silicon Valley wanted to live in San Francisco, so basically everybody moved up there. That, in turn, really destroyed any ability to live there unless you had a lot of money. So like, you know, you could take a 1,500 square foot house, your rent for that would be $8,000 to $10,000 if you wanted to live in the city. So imagine trying to buy something. If you buy a little tiny house, it's like $1 million for a fixer-upper. So San Francisco has and is still experiencing a huge creative exodus, yeah, that's the word. And it's been happening for a while, and it's even worse now. I left about 5 years ago. Even then, I could see the writing was in the walls. Since moving here, I kind of look back and I talked to some of my friends back there, and I'm like, this is the best thing I ever did, because living around Miami, Hollywood, here, the South Florida landscape has figuratively and literally been just incredibly creative and productive and experimental. I mean, there's so few barriers to realize your vision here, unlike someplace that's more entrenched like San Francisco, trying to do what I've done here would take even longer. And then the 2 years I've been in Broward, things just kind of exploded. So I don't know how that happened, but it just, there's an interesting mix of creative people and people here looking for creative experiences. So, to start that off, we always think like the grass is greener on the other side. I mean, San Francisco has amazing food, but there's a lot of infrastructure stuff for visual arts and other arts that is really lacking there now. Not because they don't want it, but again, like this IT thing just kind of destroyed the soul of San Francisco. So enough dissing on San Francisco, my old hometown. So art as a conduit to the interconnected cosmos, synthesizing the possibilities across ecology, geology, and science. I'm going to show you 4 types of work. The first one is the installation I just did for 100 degrees in the shade. It's called the Nightlands, and I'm just going to show you some images from that first. There's like a glass-like room that you approach, and the whole thing is lit up with video and panels, moving media. This is a fossil sample. This is something like, 30 million years old.
Waves of energy that excite the eye.
That thing's like 1 billion years old. It's one of the oldest life forms. Dinosaur bone. This is a outdoor public art installation I did at Young at Art Museum, and these are some stills. A lot of this had to do with water, DNA. Because that whole area is a watershed. So they designed it to collect stormwater. There's like a big swamp-like thing over there. They told me there was a snake out there. I didn't get bit, in case you were wondering. I really like playing with the surfaces. One of my key things that I really like doing is reshaping space with light. So that was really interesting because you could see it from the freeway. It was like you drive by and the whole building was lit up, and it's just, you know, not only like the conceptual, the water, the story behind the water and the water cycle and life cycle interconnectedness, that I reference within the videos is there, but also I like to make things that look pretty too. So there's this element of being at one with your universe, your space, and a form of meditation that I want people to experience. And then you can dig deeper, and then there's other stuff there, obviously, but I want to invite people in the door, and then they can explore more of the aspects within the pieces. This is another type of work where it's just pieces that are designed just for a monitor or multiple monitors. Some of those sounds are from actual space. So that's another, I think you can kind of lose yourself. I kind of started zoning out looking at that. I zone out at my own work too, which is kind of good. And then type 4 is what I call work that is not moving image, but they're sculptural, they're paintings or photo-based works. How I make work is I think about a concept or an idea. So this piece is called Telluric Shift, and this is a reference to plate tectonics, movement, and possibly there were cities at some point, and a million years from now, those cities will no longer exist. So it's a time lapse of our tectonic action happening, and there's remnants of cities in there. This piece is 60 by 60 inches. This is Telluric Inception. This has been painted it's mixed media on Tyvek. This is a mixed media piece. This references the cosmos. This is resin and mixed media on wood. This is a large painting. It's mixed media canvas. This is cosmic dancing to visible spectra. Neil, you remember that one? That's Neil's favorite piece. This is a mixed media, it's a photo-based work, and it's this one's called Pay Attention Ham. Ham was like the first chimp that went into space, and this is kind of, I don't know, I feel like, sometimes I feel like the monkey, and sometimes I feel like the guy in orange. I don't know who I am sometimes. And the camera that I put back in there is one of my old film cameras. I used to shoot with medium format, so it's a little bit autobiographical, but don't tell anyone. This is a photo-based work. This is a sample fossilized stone that I found in the Dakotas, I think. This is a photo-based work also. This is 2 layers of, I took a map of Ganymede, which is one of the moons of Jupiter. Besides Europa, Ganymede is the second most likely planet to have life because there's something like 60 miles of ice on the planet. So they think there's some kind of something in there. This whole piece is about that. This is a sculptural piece. It's resin and wood, and that charred thing there is actually, I made this while I was at Brush Creek Center for the Arts, and we were having campfires every night, so that was an ember from one of the campfires. It's a detail. This piece is called How Do I Look? This was at the Art and Culture Center of Hollywood. There's a video playing inside of this. And this is the video. It's kind of deconstructed so you can see it better. 2 million years of evolution. I love that. Like, yeah. So inspiration and exploration. So my initial inspirations are from India. My favorite festival, I always remember, I left India when I was 8, so I loved Diwali. Diwali was festival of lights. There's a lot of fireworks. It's very, it's part of life. It's just something that is, everyone enjoys it. It's just a exuberant thing to experience. So it is a representative of celebration of light over darkness. And then for me, this thing is like a connection to pure artistic creation. I was in Varanasi in 2007, and like my path in the arts has been kind of all over the place. I went to art school, obviously, but I also went to, like, what Elle didn't tell you was I went to like 5 different art schools because I kept looking for the school that I wanted, that had everything that I wanted to add, all my questions answered, and none of them did. And I look at the field now, and they still don't. This is just looking around Varanasi. I mean, this is the Ganges. It's the holiest river in India. So when you look at these images, don't think of it so much in terms of religion, but more, I look at it as spirituality and a connectedness to something pure, however you want to consciously put that in your brain to construct that. That's part of the Diwali right there. Everyone is in it. It's like this shared joy. And when this originally started, it was to bring light, the celebration of light over darkness, but there's like 10, 20 different stories of why Diwali is Diwali. But I think if you take away all of that, one of the main reasons is this happens in October. Most likely they set off the fireworks because the smoke would drift out and would kill a lot of the insects so that you would have a better harvest. So when you look at one layer of it, there's all this cultural stuff. And then if you go a little bit lower, there's a bit more of a scientific, rational explanation for why everyone does this. So why it's been done for thousands of years. So I thought that was very interesting. And if you keep that in mind, that's kind of like how I think about all my projects and all the, first there's the fanfare, but underneath it, there's some other element that is based on science. And then in terms of Varanasi, Varanasi is the spiritual capital of India. Buddha Bilita founded Buddhism here in 528 BC. I went to a town called Sarnath, which is like 60 miles north of there, and that's the town where he supposedly gave the first speech after being enlightened. And I went there too, and it's kind of like you feel something just spiritual and sacred. And even in Miami, I had a studio downtown briefly at the Christ Baptist Church, and then I went into the big church in there. It's beautiful. You go in there, and there's this sense of just calm and soothing presence there. So whatever religion you're from or whatever you believe, there's this other element of something that's deeper that all of us as humans, I think, fulfills a fundamental need. and then reconciling ancient beliefs with modern science. So that's the other thing. This is one of the early morning. We went on a ride. You see this panoply of humans. This is just beginning. It's like it gets even busier than this throughout the day. This is like, I don't know, 5:30, 6 in the morning, and I'm like wondering, what are all these people doing? I mean, we're on vacation, but the sun. So this is very misleading. This is not a clean river. Do you guys know why?
You know, they put the corpses there all the time.
Yeah.
A friend of mine went there during that time and witnessed it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we all pass away when we pass away, and the bodies are cremated, and then they're gently ushered into the Ganges. And people are bathing in there too. So I think if I bathed in there, I'd probably died like the next day from all the bacteria there. But it's definitely, it's this, you know, it just transcends any categorization. You go there and you're like, what happened? It just blows your mind. I go there and I'm like, what did I just witness? And I thought this was interesting. I was going through my pictures and I saw this bird going up the line, and I'm like, this is a little bit autobiographical too, somehow, like in between two worlds. It's like I go to India, I come back, and then I go back there and I'm like, I can never live here, but I like to go back. I'm in between, you know. Mark Twain said Benares is Varanasi, is older than history, older than tradition, older even than legend, and looks twice as old as all of them put together. So that's an understatement, because you go there and has anyone here been there? Okay, so you guys have been there, and it's like, yeah, so it's so much. So I'm synthesizing different histories, sciences, anthropology, astronomy, geological sciences. And then my background in psychology, I got an MA in clinical psychology. I thought I was going to be able to treat people for like 20 odd years, and then I got to a point where I could get my master's or continue and finish my PhD, and I was like, I'm going to be in an asylum if I continue. So I was like, okay, I'm just much more creative. And the thing with the psychological profession is that it's not very free to do what you really want to do for people. You have to really hold back a lot. So I felt a lot of institutional pressures to conform a certain way, because that's the ethical way of treating people. And I was like, I came to a point where, okay, I mean, there's a place for my vision, and obviously this has been an interesting exercise intellectually and spiritually and psychologically. But I decided, okay, I need to have other things in my life. So I went back to making art. But I think because I went and did that, I have this other layer. All of the synthesis has kind of arisen from that initial inception of going back to school for a master's in psychology for treating people. So in a way, I'm like treating people through my art. So I went to Cal Arts, I went to Mass Art, I went to Cornish. I left out Arizona State because everyone thinks you drink there the whole time, and that's what I did too. So, but they have a really good sculpture department.
I think our department chair is from Arizona.
Oh, well then you know. Party on.
She doesn't drink a lot.
So for me, I use technology to revert back to ideas of primordial connection to the universe, the spiritual influences from India, and they all add up to things that I use to connect to the universe. And one of my key things I really want people to take away from is, like, while I use a lot of technology, software, projectors, LEDs, lasers, whatever, it's really to get people more in tune with nature than to take them away from it. So that's one of the key differences I think you'll see with my work, is I'm kind of using all these tools because for me it's like a pencil. I'd rather use those than a pencil because frankly I got sick of a pencil in school. So okay, so inspiration now. Obviously the Hubble. Hubble's been one of my main inspirations. Because of the Hubble, we know how old the universe is. We also know the universe started expanding 6 billion years ago. I mean, it's been expanding, but it started accelerating 6 billion years ago. People before this thought that the universe, once after the Big Bang, it was starting to slow down the rate of expansion and kind of slowly maybe come back. But they found out 6 billion years ago, the acceleration of the expansion started increasing. So now it's still increasing, and they don't know why, but it's increasing. And it also, another thing that I found is that on almost all large galaxies, there's a black hole at the center of all large galaxies. And that's a lot. Before, they thought there were a few here or there, but the universe is riddled with potholes that are black holes. So this is the Eagle Nebula. This is some images from the Hubble. These are stars that are being born. I mean, that's just, I look at that and I'm like, this is a gravitational lens, this thing. You see these little blobular things? It's so cool. It's like the universe decided to put a big magnifying lens in front of the Hubble. It found out that the gravity, like space is gravity. The gravity pulls, and the gravity itself bends the space, and it makes a magnifying lens. Because of that, these stars here, they're so much more in the past. They're so far away that the Hubble can actually see further into the past because of that. So that's one of the ways they discovered how old the universe is. It just like blew my mind. I'm like, oh, that's so cool. I mean, like, it just, yeah. Supernova. This is a close-up of the supernova. See these variable stars. This is one of my other pieces. This is a sculpture. That's a photo-based work. So the end result is all the images that are synthesized, and then I make my own version of a universe or a galaxy. And they're kind of a cross between microscopic and macroscopic. So there's a whole series of these. And they're kind of embryonic too. And my mom's a pathologist, so I grew up around a lot of medical stuff. So that probably is some inspiration from subconscious. And these are designed to be printed about 40 by 40 inches. And there's these little kind of signifiers, decals. There's the Hubble up to the top left. To the top right is reclining Vishnu, who kind of has this universe kind of growing out of his belly. This is one of the satellites from our deep space network. We have 3 locations around the world. Because of those things, we get satellite data 24/7. This is the Age of Enlightenment. We've got a couple of cupids looking into the stars. This is one of my first installations in Miami. This consists of those pieces back there, the Hubble-based images, and video that's projected in between the walking spaces. So this is kind of probably one of the first things Neil saw, and then we've been friends since then. And I'm talking about this particular lander because this happened 2014 towards the tail end of it. Rosetta is a satellite that was launched by the European Space Agency. And they launched the Philae lander to land on a comet to study what the comet was constituted. The comet is an early remnant of our solar system, so the reason they wanted to put they were trying to figure out how the solar system forms. So it landed. This is part of it right there. Landed on a comet. You can see some more of its little feet. I mean, this is like an image from a comet. Can you imagine that? So it landed, However, the harpoons that it was supposed to dig into the ground failed, so it just kind of sat there for a little while. This is from data they got recently, so they didn't know what happened to this guy, where it actually ended up until November of 2015, a full year later after it landed. It landed, it stuck for a little bit, then it bounced off twice, and the poor guy is like bouncing still.
Is there something orbiting that's taking that picture?
No, this is data that they got of the comet and then superimposed, and they recreated an animation to fit the trajectory. The Rosetta satellite took pictures of the comet itself, so they know how the comet looks like, so they can image map that and run a 3D simulation of it. So this guy is just flying around, and unfortunately, the harpoons failed. But it was still able to get data. This accident, why I'm showing this is that, this accident ended up giving them more data than they originally thought. Obviously, it's not going to last as long out in space. It's going to have a premature death. But it was able to sample the soil at different locations. The first place it sampled soil, it found out that this comet has something like 6 feet of dirt, something like dirt, and they didn't think that was possible. They thought it was like hard, rocky, like the moon. And then another, sorry?
You can see the dust flying.
Yeah.
And it's skirted the
Right,
surface.
right. That's all a recreation. That's all animation. So this is all synthetic, like what you've seen. It's an animated buildup of what they think happened based on data points. The lander had actually tools to measure how deep the soil was. So they found 6 feet of soil. They found hard, rocky surfaces as well. And they also found boulders like 6 to 10 feet big, and trails where it looked like there was wind on the comet. So they've got these strange patterns. So this is what it also found. They found molecular oxygen on comet. Water was formed in molecular cloud and not in our solar system. So this comet is an early remnant of our solar system. There's a thing called the Oort cloud, like 1,000 times further away from Pluto. That's all around. This is our solar system. The Oort cloud is like over here. That's the remnants of our solar system. So these comets, sometimes they come closer to us, to the sun, and then they were able to intercept it. So they found out that the water was formed in a molecular cloud somewhere, and it wasn't originally from our solar system. So that's like implications of where the water come from. I don't know. And also found 16 different organics. 4 of the organics have never been found on a comet before. So that's really important because these organics are the building blocks of life. So if parts of this hit Earth at some point, those organics were transferred from a comet like that to Earth. That helped catalyze life. That whole lander thing inspired my installation I called it orbiting cathedrals, because cathedrals is like churches or places of worship or whatever where we try to get illuminated. I'm like literally looking at the skies to get illuminated from that. So that's the connection there. Orbiting cathedrals also is an industrial band from the late 90s. They had an album out, and I was listening to a lot of that. So only people who know that will get that there's 2 meanings for that. This is the shots from the installation. So this is as you approach it. There's a poem here, and to paraphrase it, it's about our multiple fractured identities kind of shattering apart and trying to make sense of them again. There's a line like crystallized minds and something like, I forget the actual thing, but this is the opening night. You guys missed this is like, I look back and I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I had a lot of help doing this. This is kids' night. They've got kids going in all the time. This is a detail of the center console.
Where was this shoot?
This was at Young at Art Museum. And these different areas where these ramps where you can climb up and stuff, you know, we built them as high as we could without getting into legal trouble. There's a cave in here, and there's another video piece playing inside the cave, so like you and your buddy could go in there and watch a movie by yourself. It's kind of another experience. So it's like a installation within an installation. And I made it really low on purpose because you literally, I mean, you had to kind of crawl to really get in there. And obviously that excluded some people, but I think that was kind of cool about it because, you know, sometimes when you go on really hard hikes, you're like, I can't do that hill, I'm going to go that way. And a really important component of that was I had people bring in objects that they were ready to let go of, like from their childhood or from their adulthood. We got all these different objects. There's the Cadillac symbol, and then I crystallized them all. And this is the in-between process. So we did a whole STEAM thing at the museum with the kids with this. And it went back into the installation. So the installation kept growing and changing, and this was a poetic way of looking at our resources and the importance of water and metamorphosis and what might we find on another asteroid, you know, these remnants of ourselves. That's a boat. It's very immersive. This kind of gives you a better idea of the movement and the flow of it. And this is a really cool program to model crystals. That was really fun. This is inside. That gives you a kind of a feeling of the whole installation that you'd be walking through. And then the next project, I went to Yellowstone a couple of years ago, and then these water things are really interesting because like around here, this really hot water, it's beyond boiling. There's these thermophiles that live on this edge, all this discolored stuff. They're all, you know, maybe some of those molecules that hitched their way here on that comet. This is a very early type of life that still exists there now. They haven't evolved because they're kind of lazy, I guess. But that's just, you know, who's been to Yellowstone? Yeah, you guys like that, yeah. And, you know, this is here on Earth. It's just like you wonder where all this stuff came from. This is all organic molecule compounds. That led to my installation at Art and Culture Center called Outpost. So these are pictures from the opening. There's samples, these samples, this is a big tourmaline. That's a fossilized something, I forget. I got those from the Frost Science Museum on loan. There's Ed Bell. You guys know Ed Bell? He hosts, or he used to host WLRN's Arts Beat. He's a big fan of mine. This is a stony meteorite. And these are some more samples from the Science Museum. So I use a lot of map references as well, like old maps interspersed with new maps of X-ray maps of the galaxy. So here I've deconstructed some of the crystals, and then you can see them in more of a specific context. What are you guys thinking about when you see this? There's no wrong answer. So it's kind of, for me, it was about trying to get us to have empathy for these objects, these rocks. How did they go through formation and kind of breaking them down into smaller components and trying to somehow figure out, like if a rock could talk, like literally, not literally, but figuratively could talk, what would it say and how can we kind of associate with these processes that are, we look at a rock and like, that's a rock, what is it? So I want people to kind of think of what, all of this stuff around us and to kind of slow down and smell the rocks, I guess. The rocks smell really cool. I mean, some rocks really do. This is a Crystal Beacon rover. This is one of the pieces I did at the Fat Village Project Space. This came out of a trip. I went to Costa Rica and I was in the cloud forest and somehow I wanted to make a crystal forest, but it's like a crystal grove. And I think when you look at this, a couple of images coming up, and the reaction to people and within the space, there's some kind of communion going on. And I think, it feels right with that idea. And this is a video also. So this thing also has a video inside of it, as well as video being projected onto the surfaces. So it's emanating and absorbing. So Fat Village is really busy nowadays. It's every last Saturday they have art walk, and it's almost too busy. I mean, it's interesting, but if you go a little bit earlier in the night, you'll get more out of it, because the later on it gets, there's just so many people there. So this is a good space, a really good alternative space. The ceilings are 20 feet tall. It's like 7,000 square feet. It's huge. This is another piece. This is Shadowmancer, and the idea of this is some of our collective cultural consciousness. So there's elements of objects of art and antiquity that are referenced that you'll see playing here and there, and then there's a camera that's looking at you. Whenever you walk into this area, there's a camera that records your motion, and it throws it back down at you slightly offset. That's why it's called Shadowmancer. And it's like this creature. I don't know what it is, but it's a creature of some. What do you guys think it is? A creature. It's a benevolent creature. He's looking out for you.
What's it made of?
Mixed media. No, it's made out of aluminum poles. Painter's tarp. There's a biodegradable paper painter's tarp, which is really stiff. It's beautiful. It's really gauzy, and it's cheap. Anyway, so what I noticed with this too is I can tell pieces are successful when people just hang out there. This lady was just hanging out there. So there's shadows, and the moon, earth kind of are revolving around you. Kids are in there. I mean, it's friendly when kids are posing. They're happy there. Kids are your worst critics. So if they like your work, it doesn't matter what anybody else says. I don't like heights. I had to get up 20 feet up there to do some of this, and That's when you need an assistant. Okay, so now I'm going to get into, I did a residency at Brush Creek last summer, which was really amazing. It's a really fancy ranch in Wyoming in Saratoga. It's like number 1 or number 2 on Condé Nast, but they have a little artist colony. Apparently, like a year before, there was a writer that was there who partied too much and drank a little too much and ruined all the privileges that artists had. So when we got there, we were like, okay, so this is your village. That's where the paying customers are. You stay here. Don't go there. Literally, it was like that. But it was a wonderful place. It was really, really great. Tell you why. They have 8 artists at any one time, 4 visual artists, 2 composers, 2 writers. I mean, that was great. And because of that, I actually have a great, I made a bunch of great friends for all of them. One of them was is a contemporary classic composer. So we are working on a piece right now. So he's going to do the audio. I'm working on the video. So this is kind of a thing in progress. It was a great experience. Part of it, again, is the nature of it, the ruggedness, the openness. You know, I left this in there because with all of this, there's some utility pole there, right, in the middle of nowhere. And I'm like, you know what? That's kind of like us putting that lander on a comet. It's going to be like somewhere, and some aliens are going to find it, and they're going to be like, what the hell is this thing? So, and like, you know, this discovery in the woods. I mean, who doesn't like horses? I mean, this was outside my studio. These guys were running around. They're so cute. That was our fire pit. Those were our studio. Those were the sleeping quarters, and on this side were the studios. And this is, you get a better scale. This is a piece I showed you earlier. So the studios are pretty nice in there too. And then I did a really large piece over there as well. That one is like 20 feet by 60 inches on that side.
Sure, what materials are you using when you do that?
What material?
Yeah.
I use Tyvek. You know why? Like, you go somewhere, the middle of nowhere, you have to ship everything there, and I'm like, what do I use? And like Tyvek, there's a great place you can order Tyvek that, you guys know what Tyvek is, right?
Yes.
Yeah. You can get it in silver, black, white, no print on it. It's almost indestructible. It's really lightweight too. I'll email you. If you have any questions about any technical or detailed questions, just email me and I'll send you that info along the way. I don't remember it right now, but it's a great tool. Tyvek also, during this whole thing, I found out like you color it and paint it, and if you burn it, it takes on the sculptural form. So there was this beautiful, like, oh my God, this is like, it was kind of like it's a lab, you go out there. This was a writer's studio. I mean, it was idyllic. This is some more work I did while I was up there. I did some sculptural pieces and studies. This is lit up. I see it now, and there's a number 2 there. I don't know how the number 2 got there, but that's a subconscious part of whatever it is that kind of came out. This is on Yupo. And these are some other still works.
You had to bring your own paints and everything.
Yeah, I shipped everything FedEx, and then they had a receiving section, and when I was done, I packed everything up and shipped it back out also. This is a image from Craters of the Moon. It's in that, not too far from there. It's on the other side of Yellowstone. I took some more time off when I was there, and I did a lot more exploring. These are lava tubes. Anyone been to Craters of the Moon? Yeah? I mean, it looks like a different planet. But there's life. Just really unique looking life everywhere there. This was on the top of the hill there. there's life. I mean, there's life everywhere. You just kind of look. These are beautiful. It's just this algae lichen mix. So that, being in there, this is one of my more recent paintings that arose from that trip. So I do stuff you just hang on a wall too, because they're all interconnected for me. This was inspired by all of that. You guys kind of get where it's coming from now? This is on paper. This is a photo-based piece. So I was kind of thinking about taking apart current, what's there now, and what might have been there in the past, and smashing them together. Same thing with this. And this was interesting because I was thinking about, the whole West was, we had horses to do it, and now it's like a bunch of saddles without horses. I was kind of drawn to making this image because it's obsolete now. And this is one of my images from the most recent show. And so these also have a video component to it also. I haven't finished making all those elements, but these are just the stills that have a movie that are associated with it also. And then this is back to the installation I showed you earlier. And I'm going to show you a little longer video of it so you can kind of get the feeling of it a bit more. And this one is also somewhat about dividing up time because there's these layers that you're walking around and you can't get to the other side. You can only absorb one section of it and then move around, absorb that section, but you can see to the other side. And to me, it was an homage of the past. You can kind of see the past, but not really. It just suddenly is past. So it's this idea of being in this time, this evolution, and you can never go back, but you're only aware of that space that you've been cordoned off or you have privy to that existence. So there's sounds from the Voyager, like when we sent Voyager into space, it has a whole bunch of recordings on this golden disc. There's a bunch of those on this soundtrack as well. So, do you feel that one a little bit more, second time around? For me, like early influences have been David Lynch, Bill Viola, and Mark Rothko. So there's these elements of that otherworldliness that they inhabit really well.
How many projectors do you use for something like that, to show something like that?
That one had, I think, 4 or 5. Sandra knows.
I turned them on and off every day for 3 months. It's like 2 sound cards and 4 projectors.
Yeah. And then That room I could only use 4 because there was only so much power going into that room. So if I had more power, I might have even used more. But at the installation at Young at Art Museum, I had 11 video feeds going simultaneously. So this is another outdoor piece. This is at the Art Serve building.
The 154-foot steel wreck still has steep decking. Lord Woodbury's remodeling of the vessel in the 1920s.
And then the future is now, so we're almost going to be finished. So what's happening now is, like I said earlier, a collaboration with a contemporary classical composer. I'm doing a bunch of current work right now that I'm still synthesizing all this experiences I had over the summer, all the travel. I traveled like 3,000 miles around the Rockies. I went to Utah, Colorado, Denver area, Craters of the Moon. Anyway, I went all over the place. So I captured a lot of video, I captured a lot of inspiration, and it takes a while for me to sift through all of that material. The first major thing that came out of it was the Nightlands installation. So now I'm going into the second phase of it where I can't tell you exactly what it is because it's still developing, because I have like 200 gigs of video and images that are being, I cook a lot. So I'm simmering all these things. So I'm making this, the next phase, the next awesome curry, whatever that's going to be. So I'm doing moving image works and still-based works, and then really about consciousness through art making. And a lot of my work, especially the public art stuff, it's really about bringing communities together and having some kind of a communal, interactive exchange element. So those are the main things that I'm focusing on now. And thank you for your presence. And Ellie, do you want to say something?
I'd like you to talk about fractured atlas, actually.
Okay. Yeah, actually, I wanted to plug Artists' Entrepreneur Institute. So this leads into Fractured Atlas. If you guys haven't done this and you're an artist or a creative person, you should just do it. One of the things I learned about is physical sponsorship. So what that is anybody that's in the cultural sphere, and Fractured Atlas is specifically good for visual artists. So what you do is you can write a proposal, send it to them, and they can become your physical sponsor. So what that means is you have a project and you're creating artwork, and what you do is you're going to say you do X, Y, and Z in the arts. They come on as a physical sponsor if you're approved by them. It's a way of raising money by having patrons, other clients, other investors give you money to make cultural works, and they can get a tax write-off. And then what you do is you invoice Fractured Atlas, and then they reimburse you. So having said that, if you could do me a favor, you can go to my news section on my website, and there's a link to Fractured Atlas. There's a little comment section. It'll take you there. It'll be like a little Facebook comment thing on the Fractured Atlas page. If you can just write down, if you like this presentation, say, hey, Sri did a great job. If you didn't like it, then I don't know what my name is. They say that on all these like tours, right? You go to St. Augustine, and they're like, I'm John, blah, blah, blah. If you like it, I'm John. If I'm not, I'm Steve, whatever. You know. So please do me a favor, do that. That would be appreciated. So anyway, what I do is, like, since my work is so much production oriented, I've kind of envisioned the way I do work as more of like a theater or a performance company, because I've got production, I've got people I need to hire. So all of these things are kind of wrapped up into making work. So it's not just like studio practice. But I mean, if you have just a studio practice, you can do the Fractured Atlas thing also. But that's what one of the really great things about the Artist Entrepreneur, because they give you a lot of different ways to self-fund yourself. Because in this day and age, you need to really self-fund yourself to get us, I wouldn't have been able to do a tenth of the projects if I didn't do this. So that's.
I would like to say something about Artist as Entrepreneur. How many people here have done that? Beju, so the three of us, because I've done it also. It happens in June at ArtServe in Broward County, and it's the best $100 you'll ever spend in your entire life. That's the short story. It's 4 Saturdays in June. It's sponsored by Broward County. It's a business course for artists. The first 3 days, you're bombarded with information, lectures by people in many, many different fields, from public relations to law,
marketing,
to accounting, all kinds of things. They give you a book that is a resource.
The book is this thick. It's really a good resource.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And then you're part of a network. You belong to a whole new community.
Yeah.
So it's funded by Broward County, but anybody in South Florida can go.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. And they have exhibitions. They have an exhibition for their new graduates.
Yep.
That's always a juried exhibition. I've been in it, and it's been wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been in one of those too.
Artist as Entrepreneur in June, 4 Saturdays.
You should definitely do it because, it also is like when you're doing studio practice or whatever practice you're doing, sometimes you need a different kind of stimulus and you don't know what it is, and kind of doing something that you're like, I'm not sure about this, but maybe just do it because it really is helpful.
I just also wanted to say that this is the last art salon until next fall. We'll start again in October, and I'm working on ideas for then. This is a fabulous way to end for the.
And thank you, Ellie, for having me here, and it's been great. It's been a really great experience.